had to relearn who Kathy was, like get to know myself at the age of 40. And then the hardest part about all that was accepting how freaking awesome I am and how I have all these qualities that I just didn't recognize because I had been so brainwashed that I was useless. Sure, I put on a great smile, but it's so easy to do that. And a lot of people do that. So it was really hard learning to be authentic and to recognize who I was at the age of 40, 41, and then learn to live with that.
Welcome to Drive, the podcast for truck drivers who are looking to enhance their lives both on and off the road, and for carriers looking for that perfect fit trucker. I'm Zac Ells.
And I'm Chelsea Faulkner.
And we're here to bring you conversations that will help keep you moving forward in every area of your life. Whether you're a seasoned trucker or just starting out in the industry, this is a show for you. Man, I'll tell you what, that was one of the most inspirational people I think I've met in such a short period of time. I mean, we didn't have to ask her any questions. I felt silly asking questions. I just wanted to shut up. I really just wanted to shut up and tell you to do the same thing. She knew what she wanted to say. She has a message. She has a purpose. She talked about her miracle moment. And, you always think about, when I think about miracle moments, I always think about stories as a kid, like from the Bible, like when something crazy happens and you know what I mean? Something big time. And then it makes a big life change. And that just from our background, but for her to spend so much time in despair in that valley of, and then not even realizing it and not even dealing with it. And then it hit her head on. I mean, obviously, the powers that be know what we can take and what we can't and know how to push us. And for her story is such a inspiration for anyone, not just women, but anyone in general. And she shows up, drives the biggest gravel truck in the world or haul truck in the world. And I mean, listen, there are men out there that dominate that. And for her to just be up there doing that, no one's going to tell her she can't do something. That's incredible.
Well, and it's a power move in and of itself. Like to listen to everything that she's done and everything that she's been through and all the things that happened to her, especially younger in life, and all of the power that men essentially took from her at that point in time. And then to have her turn around and spin it and to join a male-dominated field and jump to the top and drive that truck, that's crazy. And then to be able to go out and share that story, not just with her coworkers, and be able to step up in front of them and say, you know what? Yes, this happened. This is what I've learned from it. And this is how far I've come. But then to travel all over the world sharing that same story. That's huge. Showing up, being present in the moment, and using your voice in order to empower and uplift others. It's crazy.
Her humility is incredible. She's, you mentioned power move, and there are a lot of people out there that do this, that do stuff. They say that they don't do it for any reason, but they do. They're trying to be something. They want to be something. They want to promote, manifest, whatever you call it. She's doing it, and she's not doing it for anyone like herself. Her humility, you can tell she does not spend one waking second thinking about herself. She doesn't spend 1 minute thinking about herself, all these different things that our society is kind of breaking us up into, these little groups of different types of people. We talked about the male dominated, all that stuff. She's just a person on this earth that wants other people to be good and to be healthy. And she doesn't break anything down into anything other than good people and bad people. And I'll tell you what, there isn't somebody else that I want to be like. I don't know if I found them.
It's definitely inspiring on all different fronts.
And we didn't even get to talk about the industry and the progress and the pathway. And I mean, there's so much that we can do. I'm going to buy the book for my kid, let her read it and show her, how good life is. And really, she's showing us that it is what you make out of it, and other people can control it and ruin it for you, or you can grab it by the you-know-what and make the best out of it. And, oh man, I got to stop talking because I'm at a loss for words on processing, although I'm just going to keep rambling words that come off the tip of my tongue.
No, I totally get it. And I'm so excited to be able to share this story with our listeners. And the fact that it doesn't matter what you go through. It doesn't matter what you've been through. You still have the ability to come out the other side and prevail. And I really think that Kathy's story is the epitome of that message. And she takes it, she drives it home in the world's biggest truck.
So what do you do on your night shift?
Oh, well, I've been very fortunate right now. I've been working on the water truck. It's still very dusty here. So because it's an open pit mine, I also operate the largest water truck in the world. And you can kind of see it here. You can see it. I'm standing beside the tire. Do you see me?
Oh my goodness.
Right
That's
there.
huge.
Yeah. So yeah, it holds 52,000 gallons of water. So this is the best job in the mine because honest to God, all I do all night for 13 hours is I drive around and I hit a button, right? Which opens up the sprayers in the back. And it is beautiful. It is. I sit under this giant pipe that fills up the tank from the top, and it takes about 20 minutes, 30 minutes to fill up. And I just drive around and then I'll be back under the tank. And yeah, I actually, back in the day in 2016, I wrote my book, Dream Big. I hand wrote this book sitting in that water truck because I'm under that tree about 10, 12 times a day for half an hour. And in case you didn't notice, I have 8 hamsters and 1 wheel in this noggin. So it's always spinning, right? So I'm going to use my time wisely as I'm sitting under that water tree thinking, that it just, most people do nothing, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use this time and I'm going to write a book. I hand wrote that book in a month, which was cool. Anyway,
Dang.
Awesome.
yeah. So
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
I'm
that's
telling
what I
you,
do right now.
the size of that truck. So I was watching Avatar, the movie on Disney with my kids last night, and that looks like the same size as the trucks that come across Pandora. And I was like,
I mean,
that's
look,
huge.
right? There's me standing.
That
Right?
is so
I call it my
big.
baby.
World's biggest baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey.
So Kathy, how did you get into trucking?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's a story, and that's why I wrote the book because I was a nurse for 13 years, and I had a lot of unaddressed trauma and abuse that I had never even looked at. I mean, people have different coping mechanisms, and in my case, I just chose not to cope with it. You know what? Whatever happened, it don't matter. That was a long time ago, and I'm just going to lock that sucker up right here, nice and neat, and not address it. And nursing was a very good career in that aspect because it allowed me to take care of other people and not take care of myself. I didn't have that balance. I had no guidance growing up. It was very dysfunctional, a lot of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, just a lot of bad stuff. And I just had the only coping mechanism I knew was just don't deal with it, right? So when I hit 40, I had just left about a 7.5-year relationship with 2 separate men, and it went from bad to worse. And with domestic violence in the terms of, like, I was strangled 3 times to the point of losing consciousness. I lived with a shovel on my porch as a reminder of what I was going to be buried with. I was under constant death threats and threats of being sold into human trafficking. I had a bodyguard. I was stalked for a year. Like, I was a mess. And I was nursing at the time, and I was in and out of women's shelter. I was up in the Yukon there for 3 years at the hospital. And I started to drink, and I ended up sending my daughter for safety to live with her dad. And so I was wide open for, number one, disappearing. I was under constant threat of being thrown to the wolves in the middle of the Yukon because nobody would ever find me. And, trying to figure a way how to stay alive and how to, be there for my daughter and get out of the situation, because I had tried leaving many times and he would always find me. He stalked me to the point where he would come into my house when I was gone, wherever it was, and he'd be writing messages on the wall, "I'm coming to kill you," all these bad words. And I had no one to talk to. I felt so alone. And in 2007, I call it the Great Escape. And I finally, I managed to get away, and that's a whole other story. And so what I did, it's interesting because I left the Yukon. I managed to escape from him, and I was on the bus, and it's a 36-hour bus ride to Edmonton, Alberta, where I was going to. And on that bus ride, I called, I had a job, and I had a place to stay. So instead of dealing with what just happened, the 7 years of domestic violence and all the crap, I just kind of shifted my face and I'm like, you know what? I'm tough. I'm a survivor. I got this and no worries. Well, you can only do that for so long. So, putting one foot in front of the other because you need that paycheck. So a year later, I'm drinking more, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but, I'm trying to get my life together and he's still harassing me. And it was just like so much going on. So I showed up at the hospital. I'm working night shift again, dreaded night shift. And I had 10 patients to take care of. And I'm looking at my sheet and I'm like, holy shit, I can't see the words. I'm rubbing my eyes and I can't read the words. It's like my brain just shut down. And I knew that I couldn't pretend anymore. And by now I'm 40, right? And so I left that. I was on the medical unit and I told my supervisor I quit. And I went from the medical unit down to the psychiatric unit where it's locked. And I'm like, that's where I need to be. And in between the two floors, I lost my shit. Excuse my language. I lost my mind. No. And it was like 40 years of repressed trauma. I just went poof, like a geyser. And I'm in my nursing scrubs and I arrived down on the psych unit and I'm pounding on the door. Let me in. Well, I can see the nurse. She's calling security. Get her out. Right? So I had 2 security guards drag me on either way, on either arm, right? And they're literally dragging me down to the emerge. And they put me in a padded room so I wouldn't hurt myself. And it was the first time where I actually sat down with a psych doctor and told him everything. Like I had been molested since I was in a foster home at the age of 4. My first memory is a hand covering my mouth, telling me not to scream. I was attacked by my stepfather. Like I never spoke a word till I was 4. And then my mom said, once you started talking, you never shut up, right? Because I talk a lot. So, and then I was attacked, raped at 14. I was attacked at 15. I was drugged and raped when I was modeling in Miami at 18. I was gang raped at 19 in Montreal. And I had 3 subsequent suicide attempts. I was a big mess, but I never talked to anybody about it. I never told my mom. I never told my family. And instead I just got into nursing and just, like I said earlier, just shut her all down, right? Well, once I told this to the psych doctor back now, fast forward when I'm 40, he's like, I was sure he was going to tell me, give me some happy pills, stamp me on the forehead that I'm either psycho, bipolar, schizophrenic, multiple personalities, like something's wrong with me. And, give me a 72-hour where they lock you up and do a psychological assessment. And he looks at me, he was a little East Indian doctor, and he puts his glasses down on his nose and he says, oh no, my dear. He says, no amount of pills is going to fix you. And I'm like, huh? And he says, you need to fix you. He says, you need to, number 1, quit drinking. And number 2, you need to go look at this list of abuse and trauma. That's not just going to go away on its own. So that was the first time in 2008 by now that I had recognized the depth of the problem. So I went into treatment for the first time, but it was literally more like a vacation. It was like a three-week thing. And as soon as I got out, I went back to nursing and I was drinking within 2 weeks. And then I relapsed and I was just a mess. And finally it got to the point, I went to this women's program. I found out they had a faith-based women's program where you live there for a year and you unlearn all the decades of trauma. And then I had to relearn who Kathy was, like get to know myself at the age of 40. And then the hardest part about all that was accepting how freaking awesome I am and how I have all these qualities that I just didn't recognize because I had been so brainwashed that I was useless, no good for nothing, that I polluted the air, that, I'm a waste of skin and blah, 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 blah. So I had literally believed that. I couldn't look people in the eye, because I felt my self-esteem, I felt so dirty and worthless and just all this stuff. Sure, I put on a great smile, but, it's so easy to do that. And a lot of people do that. So it was really hard learning to be authentic and to recognize who I was at the age of 40, 41, and then learn to live with that. Well, does change happen overnight? No. After 9 months of being in that program, I left and I was drinking again within 2 weeks. I'm chugging her, right? And I went for a year and a half of wicked, wicked relapse where this time I ended up drunk and homeless, losing my nursing career for good. I'm 42 now. And look at this. And I only have this as proof because otherwise, like, I'm shocked. Okay, you ready for this? This is my homeless picture. And I only found this a couple years ago. It's not in my book. It's in 2011. You can kind of see the date there. And there's no hope in my eyes. Like, I'm just done, right? And I had slashed my arm. I don't know if you could see it. I got tons of slashes here. I don't remember doing it. I was drunk. But the thing is that moment, that picture was at the 7th day of being homeless. I had been robbed. I literally only had the shirt on my back, and I'm standing beside, I had my head on the table after they took this picture, and because you need ID to get ID. So I didn't, because I was robbed, I didn't have any identification, but anyway, so this homeless center is considered valid in Canada. So they will give you identification if you go there. So that's why I have this picture. Anyway, so I had my head on the table like this, and I'm looking around at all these zombies, because they're all high and drunk and miserable and whatnot. And I'm like, I'm educated. Like, how does this even happen? Like, I couldn't comprehend. And I had done 9 months of treatment, and I thought that I had, done all the work. And I'm like, I didn't know how this happened. And as soon as I left that, I walked outside, and there was a dude named Toothless Joe. He's the hero of my story. So good old TJ. He's drunker than a skunk, and he's happy with his situation, right? So he smacks me on the back, and he's like this. I kid you not. This is the life. Live it, love it. Big toothless grin. Happier than, whatever. That was my moment. When he smacked me on the back, to this day, I call it a God smack, because it's as if decades of depression just shattered. And I saw crystal clear. I can't explain it. And I'm looking it around, and I'm hearing his words. I'm like, what did you just say? Because I've always known there's a bigger purpose for my life. And I couldn't quite connect to it. And when he said that, I knew in that moment that whatever I was living was not my life. So I'm like, yeah. So I said, this is not my life. And I actually stomped my foot, and I said it out loud so that I could hear myself. I said, this is not my life. And although I had no plan, no hope, no nothing, all I knew is I had to get away from that guy. So I turned around and I went to detox at the hospital for a couple of weeks because I was a hardcore drinker. And I went back to that women's program, and I said, I'm not leaving here until I figure this shit out. And so I went back, and this time, although I had already addressed certain things, I had left certain things. I mean, trauma, the thing about trauma, there's a lot of layers, and you can't just unveil it all at once, right? You got to pick at it. And then, so I had to do a 12-week sexual assault recovery group. The book was this thick, and it was a small group of women. I did it the first time around, and then I had to go back and do it because I had omitted some things, right? And then I hadn't dealt with any of the guilt that I had with my daughter. So anyway, long story short, I did it. And now I'm 43, and how the hell, I knew I couldn't go back to nursing. So how do you change careers, right? What do you do? All I know is nursing. So I went to a career planning workshop at 43 to find out what I wanted to be when I grew up, right? And I really highly suggest this to anybody who's, midlife crisis or trying to figure out what they're doing. So this 3-day workshop, I did aptitude tests, personality tests, all this stuff, because really all I knew was nursing. And at the end of the 3rd day, here's the funniest thing. The lady gives me my sheet back, and in big letters on the top, it said that my career should be heavy equipment operator. And I'm like, huh? You've got to be joking. There's no way in hell. And I said, your test is wrong. I said, I'm 43. I'm a woman. I don't even like equipment. I said, I'm not mechanically inclined. And honestly, it's a man's job. I think that, like, your test is wrong, right? So I give it back. And she puts her hand on her hip, looks at me like this, and says, if only you'd believe in yourself a little bit, missy, you'd see the test is right. And she pushes the test back, and she walks away, and I'm left sitting with my arms crossed over thinking, this is bullshit. I just wasted 3 whole days and, my time. And she puts on this YouTube video, It's Possible. And I went from thinking this is bullshit to all of a sudden thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm a good driver. I used to race cars when I was young. And so I went from thinking it's not possible to it's possible because of this video. And she sent me to this nonprofit organization that we have here in Canada called Women Building Futures. And what it is, it's big companies that sponsor women to get into the non-traditional trades, like, electrician, plumbing, carpentry, welding, heavy equipment, right? So the day I went in, and this is another God moment, because had I gone a day earlier, I'd have missed it. So the day I went in, I show up on a Friday morning, half an hour early, because, I got nothing left to lose. I'm still in recovery. And ExxonMobil, the biggest oil and gas company in the world, happened to be there, and they were sponsoring 16 women to take a 12-week heavy equipment operator course. At the time, it was to work up here. So in camp, it was 10 days on, 10 days off. And I didn't know what a haul truck was. All I saw was that you get 10 days off. I said, I'll take it. I don't know what it is, but I'll do it, right? And 158 women applied because, hey, they were paying for this course, which is $18,000. And I had no money. I had nothing left to lose. I had no career. I'm like, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. You want me to do a backflip? Even though I don't know, I'll do it. Right. And so I did. And to give you an example, the dedication I had to changing my life, they wanted me to do a math test, and I hadn't done math in 20 years. I sucked in math. I found my high school transcripts in grade 11 and 12. I had 56. You need 50 to pass, right? And so I asked the lady, I said, how do you pick your candidates? Oh no, you just need 50. I'm thinking, that's bullshit. I think, are they going to pick someone with 50 or someone with 80, right? So even though I was in recovery from 9 to 4 every day, I was going to free math tutoring every night from 7 to 9:30. So at the end of the month, I got 96 in math, right? So I did a floor slide. I was so happy. I ended up getting picked. So out of 158 women, I got picked, and I did the 12-week course. And oh my God, I cannot stress enough that getting on these pieces of equipment, getting on the excavator for the first time, I'm sitting there loading a rock truck, and I'm like, holy shit, look, I can do this. I can do this. And something in my head, the flip switched, because decades of being told that I can't do anything right, to all of a sudden getting on the grader, getting on the dozer, getting, even on the little rock truck. And I say little because of what I'm driving now, right? And being able to do this, I'm like, holy shit! Like, I've been lied to my entire life that I have all these qualities and I can do it. And so, out of the 16 women after the end of the 12 weeks, they only hired 11 women. And take a guess, I got hired. And I've been doing this job. I work for Imperial Oil. It's Imperial Oil in Canada, ExxonMobil in the States. It's the same company. And I've been doing this for 11 and a half years, and best career change ever. If I would ever see that woman, that facilitator, I would give her the biggest hug and kiss, tell her she was so right. And so now I operate the biggest truck in the world, as you saw earlier, cover on my book. This picture here, I don't know if you can see it. My first day on site, you can't see it on there. I'm like, I'm like that. I'm crying in the picture. I hadn't even climbed those stairs yet, because I'm crying because in that moment, I'm thinking of Toothless Joe. That picture was taken exactly 2 years to the day of Toothless Joe. And I'm thinking, how do you go from drunk, homeless, to driving the biggest truck in the world? And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, how does this even happen? And it blew my mind that had someone told me when I was standing drunk with Toothless Joe, drunk and homeless there with that picture, had someone told me, okay, Kathy, in 2 years' time, you're going to be standing by the biggest truck in the world. You're going to be doing all this stuff. I'd have laughed them off the sidewalk, telling them they're high. I'm like, yeah, right. Sometimes, and which I say a lot today, when people are struggling, you can't see further than your own discomfort, further than your own inner pain. But the miracle most times is right around the corner. If you're able to get out of your own head and just kind of see your life from a different perspective, you would see that the hope is always there. The inner strength is always there. You just got to tap into it to find it. And my inner strength came from making that decision with Toothless Joe. Like, this bullshit, like, this stops right here, right? Because in the end, it is a choice. I could have went and had a drink with him, or I said, no, this is gonna, there's more to me than that. And so I was able to recognize that in myself. Don't get me wrong, the journey has been long and painful, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and, you know, change does not happen overnight. But as you can see from the story, there is hope, and there is, you just have to look at yourself and recognize it. So, yeah. And that's only part of the story.
Wow. Talk about a proverbial fork in the road.
I'm ready to go to Amazon.
That's incredible. We could shut this off right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to hop on and order this book right now while we're doing this.
Yeah. So it's yeah, that's just part of it. So.
Well, you joined the trucking industry. I joke with Chelsea all the time about how when you get in, because I dragged her into trucking, and I was like, you know, I'm always joking about how we have CTSD, current traumatic stress disorder, working in this industry. It's just constantly going, and it never stops. And I'm like, geez, Louise.
Say that again. Current traumatic stress disorder. I'm going to use that on the radio tonight.
But seriously, it's like in trucking and logistics and all the stuff, everybody's got a story, and then people are all trying to work through it. And so for you to have a background that you just shared about, and then to jump right into it with, it's like, wow, it's a wild story. I don't even know where to start with questions.
I'm just over here. I read a book over the weekend, and one of the quotes in it was that pain will push you until passion pulls you. And I'm just listening to this, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the passion, it grabbed a hold of you. And the minute that it grabbed a hold and it pulled you clean out of that. And that's amazing.
Yep.
So amazing.
But, you know, I mean, not every story is like that. It's just, and I really believe that I've always known since I've been a little girl, that there's something bigger to my life, and I just couldn't quite align it. So it was that drive to find it that's always been the drive. Get it? Anyway. Yes.
I got it. I was going to be quiet about it. I totally got
it. So yeah, it's been that drive, that inner drive, that's been my motivating factor. And the pain served as the fuel to the fire, right? It just, no, this is what I'm doing. And so now what I do is I just use that pain to show people that you can overcome that mountain, that you can use your story, use your struggles, and not necessarily live there, but use it as your motivation to change, to rise above it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like laws of gravity, laws of motion, right? Every action has an equal and opposite, so you needed a hard stop to go the opposite way that you were going.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you found it. So what? I'm not even sure where to start. So what?
You've left him speechless. This doesn't happen often. You should be very excited about this moment.
And then you do such a good job of putting that in such a like a compact story. How many people, like, how often, what's your audience like? I mean, I can't even, I want to start listening to more of your episodes.
So here's the thing. Once I got this job, I knew that there was something bigger to my life. So now I have this job. I'm a year into it. At the time, it was 10 days on, 10 days off. So 10 days off for a recovering alcoholic is a long time to sit there and do nothing. Yeah. So 8 hamsters, 1 wheel in this noggin. So here I am sitting there fidgeting, and I'm like, okay, you know what? God did not leave me alive on purpose to sit here wasting precious time watching useless TV programs. So I started to help myself. I would, get those whatever quotes on Facebook or Instagram, and I'd take a screenshot, and I'm like, oh, that's a good one. And then I'd put them on my locker. I'd put them in my room, and I started laminating them, and that would keep my mind and my hands busy. And then I said, you know what? That women's program where I was at, there's 25 women that lived there for a year from all walks of life, people from prison, from the streets, from whatever. And their idea, it was a great program, but their idea of a self-esteem class was putting on a Joyce Myers video. Joyce Myers is great. However, for a bunch of recovering addicts, like it's not enough, right? That's not It's not. So I decided to go back to the women's shelter, to the women's program, recovery, and give self-esteem. And so I started, and that kickstart my whole life. So I did that. I would go to women's shelters. I would go to youth centers. I would go to drop-in centers. I would go to the men's recovery program. I started going to schools. I mean, for free. I'm just cold calling, say, hey, this is my life. And that's when I decided to come up with this. You know what? Instead of re-saying this all the time, I'm going to write a book. And that's when I wrote the book. But now the book is in English, French, because I'm French, and all my family's in Quebec. And they're like, my aunts were like, nobody speaks English, or only a few people. And my aunts were like, what's it say? And I'm like, oh my God, I got to translate it. So then from the French came the Spanish, and now it's been Portuguese. So, and then from that, every chapter, there's 10 chapters. Every chapter has 4 or 5 questions for the reader to do some self-reflection and to look at themselves. Like chapter 1's on fear. So one of the questions is like, what if you were to take that word fear out of your life? What can you accomplish? Like simple question. Well, when someone's in recovery, it's a big question. Mm-hmm. So I have 10 questions like that. So people were I created the website. People were wanting more. So now I have a workbook that accompanies the book, for every chapter. So I've released 6 chapters. Now I just have 4 left. From that, like everything just kind of spanned. So I started Operation Hydration the year after I was I started my job because I was homeless. The homeless can't get water. And so it was really hot out, and I'm like, oh my God, nobody has water. So I ran to the store and I bought 7 cases of water. I bought some coolers and some ice, and I started driving around the homeless area, and I was handing out water. And if you would see the lineups of people running for water, they want the ice that's melted. And so now every city I go to, I bought magnets for whatever rental car. It says Operation Hydration, free water. I do it in every city. Every city. It's a big thing, right? Especially in Vegas when it's, like really hot. And my daughter has joined me. She's the one who coined it, Operation Hydration. I started a work boot recycling program where people, because getting into the program, I didn't have money and I didn't have boots. And I have this golden opportunity, but no boots. You want to talk about a barrier? Holy shit. So, I mean, they're expensive, a pair of work boots. They're like $250. So when I got here to site, people are throwing out their boots because they were breaking a bootlace because we get 3 pairs a year. And I'm like, holy shit. So instead of throwing them out, I started recycling them. And to date, I've collected and recycled over 10,000 pairs of boots to the community in need, people that can't afford it, that, are looking to get a job. We have programs in Canada that offer the safety tickets, to when you want to get in construction, you need your first aid, you need, WMIS and all that. So they're offering the program, the safety tickets. I show up with boots and hard hats, and now this person is set to go get a job. So yeah, that's another little part of what I do.
Little part. I love how you say this is another little part. I mean, Kathy, I'm sitting here. I am in so much awe right now of everything that you've accomplished in such a short period of time after you came out.
Wait. Like, I'm a little bobblehead too.
Here's another little thing.
And you're bigger than
sparkly.
My new brand is Designer Minor, so all my hard hats are like, it was supposed to be a bobblehead, but they forgot the bobble. So whatever.
I love this. I absolutely.
It's like the number one thing. Bobblehead has to bobble.
I've been busy.
This is amazing. And I mean,
I don't waste a moment's time. So
I'm just like curious about what else you got over there.
I've already seen her room
you got a big
before we
top
started this. It's not that big, but now I'm like, how much can you fit in there?
I was wait a minute. I was the cover of Lure magazine in March for International Women's Day. They did a 2-page article there, and then I was on another magazine. This one here. I don't know if you can see it. Red Silk Carpet. They did an 8-page article for International Women's Day. Yeah, so about everything that I've done and stuff. So that was quite the honor. So that was just this year. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. Well, you brought up your daughter. She's helped you up with the Operation Hydration, and you mentioned earlier that she had gone to live with your husband when you were going through some hard times. And I was interested in knowing a little bit more if you want to talk about like how that all
a lot of people in recovery go through this. A lot of women lose their children. And so when I ended up drunk and homeless, she was, I mean, out of love and desperation, she didn't talk to me for 2 years. She was like, Mom, get your shit together. You know, like just stop it. Like, you know, enough. And as a 16-year-old, I get it, right? Because my mom's an alcoholic. And so I understand. But once I got the job and once I kind of landed, you know, some stability with my sobriety, we started reconnecting, and it's actually in the book. I dedicate the book to her. We went on a healing trip, and where we hiked in the mountains. We almost died. It was a whole thing. I write about it, and that moment there has kind of connected us, and now we're inseparable. So it's just, she's been critical in my recovery, and likewise I have been critical in her recovery, because she's had quite a few of her issues as well. You know, I mean, we all do, but I've been her role model because I have now 12 years sober and just everything that I do. So it was her 30th birthday in December, and living in LA. Okay, my little secret is I love Enrique. And so we went to Enrique, Ricky Martin, and Pitbull, and we dressed ourselves up as Pitbull. We went and we were the only ones dressed up as Pitbull. And there's like 20,000 people. Everyone was stopping us on the road, like, Pitbull, Pitbull, taking selfies. And we were the highlight of oh yeah, it was great. She'll never forget her 30th birthday.
I'll have to share that on my kids going to the Pitbull concert here in Indy on Sunday.
There you go.
He was actually texting me this morning. Yeah. Pitbull will be here Sunday, so we'll have to break that out.
You will get a rise out of everyone around you. Oh yeah, everyone was taking pictures. It was awesome. Yeah. So it's a great show. Absolutely great show.
Kathy, what would you say is one of your biggest inspirations on a day-to-day basis nowadays? Like, what is it that continues to drive you or continues to push you?
Well, it's the reaction I get from people. I have so many, like when I just sold my house a couple years ago, but I just want to show you, because you won't believe it unless I show you. You know, there's days that I wonder, am I making a difference? Because I mean, I'll go to the Caribbean, to the islands, and I don't stay in a fancy resort or posh. I just, you know, whatever. I said, bring me to the hood. Bring me where people are hurting the most. And that's what I want to do. So don't get me wrong. I get my afternoon snorkel time, but in the morning, I'm in schools in whatever island I'm at. I'll cold call and I'll say, hey, listen, and I will show up I bring my uniform, I bring my hard hat, and I'm going to be talking to young girls who are raped. And they're stuck on an island and they have nowhere to go or nowhere to, you know, nothing to do. And I empower these kids. And right there. You can see me in I have these, all these girls were raped. And so I talk to them, and I have these giant fists, like these Hulk fists that I bought at Walmart for Halloween, you know, like $10. And I bring them, right? And these kids put on these fists, and they put my hard hat on, and they're just all ready to go. And so I do that. And when I'm there, of course, it's empowering, but it's afterwards that I'm sitting there. Like I'll talk to I'll even talk to little kids like this, and I'll bring school supplies. And to the little kids, I talk about good touch, bad touch, about not keeping secrets, about talking to someone. I mean, it's good in the moment, but what really, really keeps me going is, are you ready for this? I call it my wall of love. So this here is pictures, gifts, cards, napkins of students, of people from all over the world who send me stuff of gratitude, whether it's text, whether it's something from Messenger, from Instagram, saying, you know, how much people have written on napkins. I have people drawing pictures of me, of just, you know, showing their gratitude because it's the only thing they have. You know what I mean? And so on days that I'm struggling, am I making a difference? I'll flip around and look at this wall of love and thinking, okay, you know what? You need to keep going, because it's not about me. It's about all the people that you are helping. It's about the shift in mindset that this young girl that's been raped, that has never had an opportunity to talk about it, all of a sudden she'll put on these fists and she'll find her own inner strength and do something about it. And recognize through my story, my pain, that if I went through all that horrible stuff, that change is possible. You know, that sure, there's work involved. It's not going to happen overnight. And so in order to really accelerate that, when I'm looking at these kids in other countries, I decided, my book is too big for them. So I wrote a children's book during COVID, and I dedicated it to these kids, because I was standing in a church with 138 students, and I had made these hands of hope. So I looked at my hands sitting in the truck. I'm like, I can't change the social structure. What can I give them? So I outlined my own hands and I wrote words of hope in the fingers. And then I made cards, right? Well, I went to all my groups. I went to schools all over Alberta, and I had people that are in pain make cards of hope for other people in pain, right? So from one suffering individual to another suffering individual. And so I'm surrounded by 138 students with these hands of hope. And in that moment, I'm like, oh my God. So what I did is I made a children's book based on my story and how to find inspiration through your own pain. And that children's book is now in three languages. And I give it away for free. It's not about money. It's about making a difference in someone's life, right? So, and in times of darkness, when they don't have anything, you can go inside and find your inner strength. So that's what I've been doing. And now I'm working on my third book. So, did I mention that I work full time in between all this?
I mean, you have a job?
I know.
And nowadays, we were actually having a conversation earlier about how technology has done such a good job of connecting everybody, but at the same point in time, pulling everybody apart. And the power is in the presence. So when you have the ability to stand up and to show up and to actually speak out and use your voice, especially in those instances, and society has taught us, listen, these things happen to you. You should feel guilt about it. You should feel shameful about it. And when you have the ability to stand up and start to use your voice to share your own story, to show, listen, yes, this happened to me, but this is not who I am. That's huge.
Exactly.
That is so huge.
And that's why I go to conferences like Women in Trucking. I'm going again this year. I'm the third time in a year. This time I'm on Sunday because for the last 2 years, they've been putting me in a room that's so small that people, they are literally lined up on the wall. They're sitting on the floor. They're in the aisles. The doors are open. All I see is hands and phones and people recording. They're in the hall. Like, it's crazy. So they finally put me in a room that has, instead of 200 people, I'll have 600. So I'm doing a workshop on the Sunday. So that'll be good. So, yeah.
So I'll be there.
So this is the kids with my hands of hope. All these kids, right? I'm standing there. So this is, I know it's my moment. So this is why I do what I do. And at Women in Trucking, and specifically, I can't even begin to tell you the difference, the impact, because it's not just these kids that you think are in a society that's really, there's so much human trafficking, and all these kids are being sexually assaulted. It's horrible. It makes me nauseous. It's so sickening. But you'd be surprised that when I'm giving corporate events, even in my own company, that people that are pulling me aside, like Women in Trucking, that aren't used to speaking out, that they'll pull me aside, whether I'm in the bathroom, it doesn't matter where I go in that conference, someone's pulling me aside. Hey, Kathy, oh my God, right? This is my story, because people tend to want to hide behind that white picket fence. Like I did nursing, right? I got this great career and blah, blah, blah. Nobody knew what the real horror was going on in my house. So my voice enables me to reach out all walks of life. And that's what I love, why I do what I do, and why I continue to do what I do, and why there's no off button. And I'm going to keep doing this until the day I die. Like I said earlier, it's not about the money, because everywhere, every women's shelter that I go to, every youth center, every school, I give away my books for free. Because when I was struggling, I didn't have the money, but I needed hope. And so this book is hope. That's what it is. It's tidbits. It's not the whole picture. It's just enough to show the rise from the pain to conquering, to, because the book stops when I get the job, right? So it's just the steps that I took. So yeah, little bit busy.
Just a little busy. Well, you're creating value, like as you know, when you go to your job, like your job, you're trying to create value for your employer, and so that they can continue to promote. And you're doing the same thing for these people, these kids, these people that have, because I feel that oftentimes people don't speak up, because when you're a victim of something, you probably tend to lose sense of your own self-worth, your own value. And so you start to feel like, just from my own experience, nothing close to anything that you've been through, but like, where do I fit in? How can I be here? Who do I matter to? And so you're doing that for these kids. And I've spoken, years ago, I would speak at these YMCA groups with kids here in Indianapolis that would be from areas that were, a lot of poverty or whatever, and talk about, growing up as a teenager and maybe being angry and decisions that you make. And I never really understood the impact until they started asking for the return visits and stuff. But I was wondering what is so attractive to this type of speaker. And I feel like it's the value that you create for them, because they don't have anyone in their world telling them anything that they're worth something.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's also the fact that I continue to face obstacles. Like I talk about fear all the time, because fear is going to paralyze you, right? And so last year I was 54, and I'm learning to operate the biggest dozer in the world. And I talk about this in my workshop because I show pictures, because people don't realize that. Think about the Grand Canyon. You're on a cliff, right? And I'm like this in the middle of the night. You can't see because these blades are so big. The only reason you're at the edge of the cliff is because the whole dozer will tip over. You're like, oh, back up. So I talk about facing your fears and doing things to the next level to help yourself. That's where people get confused. They don't understand how facing your fears is actually going to help you advance, but it really does. So yeah, there's just so much, I think anyway, there's so much value to what I say for every person, for every walk of life. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, no matter what your job title is, you're still a human being suffering with whatever, right? And different perspectives, different angles, different teaching methods will help anyone. The question is, are you open to it, right? Are you ready and willing to take a look at your innermost, darkest moments? But it's not going to kill you. Sure, it's going to hurt. You're going to cry. You're like, oh, that sucked. But really, with the right therapist, you're limitless to change.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you manage your work-life balance? But how do you really manage your life balance? Because it seems like you do so much more outside of work that is empowering and impactful than maybe what you even do at work.
It's interesting, because when I wrote the book, I always kept the two separate, right? And 3 days before it was going to be released, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, here at work, at the time we were 180 people, nobody knew anything other than I was a nurse and that I'm always happy, right? So when the book was about to come out, I got all these big tough guys, tattoos, these machos, and there's only right now there's only 6 women on my crew, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they're gonna know everything, and I panicked. I had 3 days of anxiety until it occurred to me. I'm like, wait a minute. Don't tell me these big tough guys don't have problems too. So I flipped the switch in my thinking, and I went in front of my group and I said, listen. And so I put my book on the big screens. I said, you see this book? It is not about mining. It has nothing to do about mining. And I said, before you hear third-party gossip in the lunch shack, I gave him in bullet point form, this happened. And I'm not asking you to read the book. And in fact, I'd rather you not read the book. But, it's a little too personal, but I said, but the thing is, if you know someone who is suffering from anxiety, depression, sexual assault, suicide, because I had 3 suicide attempts, whatever it is, maybe buy the book and pay it forward to them. And oh my God, what that did it shocked me because it changed the conversations in the workplace to, oh, what'd you do on days off, or how's the weather, the superficial bullshit, to all of a sudden men are pulling me aside saying, hey, Kathy, I have two teenage daughters and they're really struggling right now, and I want to buy your book. And well, it spread like wildfire because this is a big mine. We have like 7,000 people, and between Calgary and Exxon in the States, I mean, there's a lot of employees Canada wide. And all of a sudden, we're having conversations about mental health in the workplace. And it changed everything. People from all over started reaching out to me. And now they're comfortable about talking about, you know what, I'm really struggling. And so it helped me. It helped them. It helped me at the same time. So whether I'm here or there, it's the same. The bottom line remains the same. You have to be vulnerable enough to be willing to talk about it. Right? To break that ice and say, listen, this happened to me, and I'm going to be honest and candid about it, and that's it. So it gives courage to other people to open up about what's going on in their life.
Before Zac jumped onto the call and we hit record, you were talking about showing up as your authentic self, and that being in the way that you showed up here today, and you were like, look, it's my authentic self. But it really is. And when people are willing to come up and to start using their voices and to start sharing their true authentic story about who they are and what they've been through, it can change the narrative across industries because of the fact that we go from the basic day-to-day small talk that we engage in because we're all connected online. We all know what each other's doing because we saw it on Facebook, to what's happening behind what's going on online and what people are showing in the front they're putting up. Because when they realize that, oh, wait, your life isn't picture perfect like it shows online, you do have struggles, then we can start to have the bigger conversation.
And I make a point of putting all my failures online. I make a point of it so that people can see. Like, I got stuck in the grader yesterday, like mega stuck. And I made a post today about making those mistakes, and it's okay. Don't drive there, dipshit, right? Move around. Whatever. I'm willing to be that person to say, you know what? I honestly put on 2 left gloves the other day, and I made a point of showing. I had to work 13 hours with 2 left gloves. Right. Whatever. Okay.
All right, talk about some of your personal work milestones that you've hit. As far as being in the trucking industry, I know we've been talking a lot about your personal background, but what are some of the things that you've hit at work in trucking that you'd like to share with some of the listeners?
Well, I've been operating the biggest truck in the world for the last 11 years. Tires are 14 feet tall. The truck itself is 2.5 stories high. When the box is up, it's 5 stories high. It's a freaking building. It's so cool. 3,800 square feet. Oh, little tidbit. The box holds 2 million hockey pucks, just so you know.
Did you count that?
Of Caterpillar, 2 million hockey. Yeah. No, I won 2 awards for being an ambassador for women in, or not women in trucking, but women in heavy equipment. I drive the biggest water truck, the biggest grader, the biggest dozer, and the dozer, I just finished that last year at the age of 54. Age is not an issue. It's just a number. People limit themselves. I don't. And the boys here at work, they say I have big kahunas, balls of steel, because I'm that person that I'm going to do it. It's also a personal challenge. I've overcome so much in life that I think the best point you can say is just test yourself, challenge yourself, and learn to laugh at yourself, love yourself, good or bad, mistakes or not. There's no point in hiding it. Trucking has been by far, like right now, our mine is all autonomous trucks. So I don't drive the big truck anymore. I drive the water truck. It's a little bit smaller, not by much, but I really miss the day-to-day trucking. I mean, I love all the equipment, but trucking is awesome. Yeah, it is. It's given me a backbone. I tell women worldwide that operating heavy equipment is men's best kept secret. You got to try it. You just got to, right? It'll change you. It's given me a backbone. It's given me a voice. It's given me even more courage and confidence. Holy crap, right? I walk taller now when I'm walking. I'm like, hey, you have no idea what I just did last night, right? So it's hanging on a cliff and going up and down and like, yeah. My t-shirt, you can't see it, but it says all I need are mascara and machines.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've done more in the last 12 years in trucking than most people do in an entire lifetime of anything.
That's right.
What keeps you going though? Like, what's your juice?
It's everything that I do on days off. It's the people. It's because you don't realize the ripple effect of change that one person has, that I've been able to reach hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. And that is what keeps me going. And that hopefully one day I can give this up and just focus on that. And that's why my podcast now, Women Road Warriors, is a huge thing, because I mean, my God, we were the top 10 out of 1.2 million podcasts. Like, that's huge, right? So, I mean, who knows where that's going to be? That's going to go. And we just keep rising. And then hopefully one day I can just focus on that and then kind of step away from this. So.
Okay, Kathy.
That's
so
awesome.
I've heard all of these different hamster wheels that you keep spinning, but just as important to the mental health space are the concepts of rest and play. And so far I've heard that, yes, you play at work because you're driving all of these huge machines that you're hanging off cliffs with that I'd be terrified to do. And yes, you've been scuba diving once in the past 12 years that I've now heard. What else are you doing? How do you have the downtime? Like, how do you unwind? Where do you find that rest and play in your life?
I
Pictures.
This here is the Hue app. The Hue app. So this is my meditation that I do every 20 minutes a day, and it grounds me and it resets me. I've been singing this since I've been 14. It's in my book. My mom introduced it to me. This particular app, it's for whatever religion you are. It doesn't matter, whatever beliefs you are. It basically, it just resets you. And it's always enabled me to focus and reshift where I need to be. However, mental health is a broad spectrum. So this is my meditation. But on my days off, yes, besides all that I do, I bought myself a Jeep Gladiator truck. I can't sit in a small car. You know, that's being said. I like, bigger stuff. So, I mountain bike. I living by the ocean in LA for the last 3 years. I'm out on the beach. I do Kathy things that I enjoy. I'm an avid hiker. I take time for me where it's just one-on-one with Mother Nature.
That is awesome. Kathy, how would our listeners find you on social media, or where should they find you to follow you?
Instagram is Designer Minor CA. Facebook is just my name, Kathy Tuccaro. Amazon, Google me. I think there's 6 pages worth you can find. I mean, I'm everywhere. My books are available on Amazon, Kindle, whatever. Women Road Warriors on Spotify, Google, you name it. Red Silk Carpet. It's an 8-page article. That was in March. And then Lure Magazine was a 2-page article. Go check them out. Yeah. And anybody that's struggling, I just want to put this out there, reach out to me. I always respond. Always, always, always. My webpage is just my name, www.kathytuccaro.com. There's a contact. Reach out to me and I will respond. And if you need a book, I will send you one for free. So there you go. And Chelsea, I will see you in November.
I'm so excited. I am so excited.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, this has been the best way to wake up that I think I've ever had on night shift. So thank you. I still got to go to work now.
I know. I was going to say she's got to go to work. We can sit here and talk forever, but we're going to get you fired. Probably not. But
no, I'm in the water truck, so it's a good night. I just hit a button. It's all good.
Well, Kathy, it's been a pleasure talking to you and meeting you. And hopefully I'll be able to see you. I'm going to go to the Women in Trucking event too.
Oh, yes.
I'm excited.
Color? I'll bring you one.
Green is my favorite color.
Green and orange. Deal. All right. Thank you.
All right, Kathy.
And we'll see you in November.
Yes.
Take care, Kathy.
You.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Drive. For more from Handle Now, Chelsea, and myself, head to handlenow.com and sign up for our newsletter. You can also join our Facebook group called The Driver's Seat and follow us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.